Jon Jon Briones, welcome to Cultural Attaché.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for having me.
We're here to talk about Pacific Overtures, Stephen Sondheim, John Weidman musical that you will be doing at East West Players and playing the role of the reciter. So before we get started, I want to tell you what Steve Sondheim said about Pacific Overtures. He called it, quote, the most bizarre and unusual musical ever to be seen in a commercial setting. Now, that was in 1976.
He said that.
He said that.
Oh, thank God.
We know that many of his musicals were not well received when they were originally produced, but that time and audiences have caught up to those shows. Do you think time has caught up with Pacific Overtures? Are audiences maybe more open to what this show is now than they have been at any other point?
I think so. It's better. It's better. It's still case in point when they mounted this in was it 2004 to 2005? They didn't last very long on Broadway. I think it's still hard for the general audience members to appreciate something that they think they won't get or won't relate to because this might be controversial, but it's all Asian. King and I has that, really main character that is Caucasian, and South Pacific has all but Pacific Overtures, I think it's hard because and Sondheim and Weidman, they wrote something that they wanted. I think they thought they were being true to the culture. And so the music is beautiful, but it's really something different. And then the text itself and the way they presented things, it's even to me, I go, what is the meaning of this? I'm finding the meaning of it, and I understand it better now, but I have questions.
Well, I think I read in an interview you and Getty did with Pasadena Weekly that your first reaction was one that a lot of people have, that you didn't fully understand it and that there were a lot of questions. You know, having worked on it now for as long as you have prior to this weekend's opening, you know, have you been able to sort out a lot of those questions? Do you understand more about what this show is doing and what it's saying and how your character, the reciter, plays a role in that?
I think so. I think I've reached that, and it in my career, if I don't really understand something, but understand well, I try to understand it the way I would and believe it and stick to that so that I can grab on to my reality. And I think that's what I did right now. Yeah, my understanding of it is maybe different from the original idea of Sondheim and Weidman, but I'm sticking to that because I think my understanding of it is something beautiful and kind of universal.
Well, I would assume that, like many actors, you're intrigued by the things that scare you. How much did being part of Pacific Overture scare you?
I'm petrified. I First of all, I'm not Japanese, and it's not like it's all English. It's really, and especially the way Tim wants to do this. He wanted to be true to the original vision of Sondheim and Hal Prince, which is kabuki and all that. I'm not Japanese, and kabuki, they've been studying this since they were children. So it's something set and there's truth in how they do it. I didn't want and I told Tim this, I don't want to do something generic because I might offend people. But he said, just find yourself, find whatever is true and it with a hint of that. And I think we found a happy medium there. But I'm scared.
Well, it's a very different kind of role than the engineer in Miss Saigon. The engineer is about as flamboyant and out there and presentational as any character I think written in musical theater. You know, I think Sondheim said that there was something, that the Japanese culture was a minimalist culture.
Hmm.
So I would assume that this is requiring you as an actor to do something completely different than perhaps other roles have given you the opportunity to do to be minimalist, but to still get the story across.
Absolutely. I'm trying to do things in the show, and our kabuki consultant, he would go, Jon, you don't have to do that. Make it simple. Make it simple. All right. You're right. You're right. It is that. It is just it is the way just observing our kabuki expert, the way he does things, it's just by a look, by a tilt of the head and all that, and then just, you know, simple hand gestures. It's the look, there's so much subtleties there, but also that there's a big reactions to, because it is kabuki, it becomes big, but for the most part it's just simple. But even the big ones, it's just, and it stays there, and it's like saying scared for a long time. It's like, take this, and so I'm trying to, and I'm appreciating that, and I'm learning something. I'm learning, and I'm grateful that I said yes to this, even though it scared me.
Now, you mentioned concern about not being Japanese. For people who don't know, you were born in the Philippines. Um, there is a lot of dialogue going on about whether people have to have lived-in experiences to be playing a character. And I understand that intellectually, but practically, aren't we negating what actors do? I mean, the example I give in conversations is, should Anthony Hopkins have eaten people to be able to play Hannibal Lecter? I mean, there's a point where you can go too far with this.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that was one of the things that I been struggling with, especially when opportunities opened up for Asian actors. We kind of limited ourselves after that because, they've been saying Japanese stories should be told by Japanese people, and Chinese stories, Korean stories should be. And I get that because the opportunities are so few, and that they wanted it to be done properly. I get that. But if it is in English, I think that should not be the case, because we're not speaking Japanese, we're not speaking Cantonese, or Korean. It's in English, and we can bring in our own experiences, because all experiences are relatable. They happen to everyone in China, in Japan, in Timbuktu. They're all the same. It's human experience, and we all have that. And it should be valued, and it should be right. It should be allowed, because they're all the same.
And that's what great theater, great art does, is that there's a universality to the storytelling that allows us all in, whether or not, we're a cannibal or a prince of Denmark, or, a pimp, you know, selling out, women to, Vietnam
Yeah.
fighters.
Absolutely. And, maybe eventually it will go there, because when there are more, and there are more now, more Asian roles, I think maybe we will reach what Caucasian actors have achieved, like playing a German officer, an American playing a German officer, or playing Italian, and playing all these things, and still the experience is valid.
Right. So What discoveries did you make about this story in your journey to get to opening night and about the character of the reciter?
I've discovered about, that's a good question. I've discovered about how to tell a story of an experience that happened a long time ago and making it uh, entertaining, but at the same time valuing the journeys of each characters. And telling stories of so many characters. It's the way we did it is like, should I say this? Yeah. The way the way we're playing this is that because I asked Tim, why am I telling this story? What is the purpose of this? And then he said, yeah, that's a good question. Who do you think is telling the story? Are you Japan? Are you the emperor? Because the emperor back then was a 1 year old child. And so I went, oh, that's really good. So it's the stories as an emperor, a 1 year old, he's probably got a companion or an advisor that's telling him this is what happened, this is what happened, and so he gets all these informations, and he is formulating this and seeing this in his own mind. As a child, he could have played this in his mind playfully, and as he grew older, he realized, put things together, and now he's telling this, and he has uh um uh, uh um what do you call, for lack of better words, the punchline at the very end, or the moral of it. Why am I telling this? Because this is what happened. But I'm going to tell you from the beginning. It's like, this was funny. This was tragic. This was funny. And then at the very end, he goes, now this is my point. And then he goes on for that. It's, to me, the story is about change. Uh, and changes how it got to a certain people. It got violent. It was funny. It was scary. And all of those things are helpful to get to a helpful information to get to the finale of the storytelling.
Well, it's
Did that make sense?
It makes complete sense, but it also makes sense to me because I've seen the show, not your production, but I have seen Pacific Overtures. I did see the Roundabout production in 2005. Um,
Oh, I have a lot of friends in that. What a cast.
it was a great cast. It was a great cast. It was my first exposure beyond listening to the cast album. Um, and I loved it, but it took me a while to realize why I loved it.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not an easy show.
That's not.
Um, but it's really richly rewarding if you give it the chance to be what it is. That's my take on it.
I think I think you're gonna enjoy our version. It yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. You brought up the question that you asked Tim about why are you telling this story and who ultimately are you in telling the story? And that makes me think of Someone in a Tree, which is, different perspectives on the same story being told simultaneously. Sondheim said that was one of his favorite songs he ever composed.
Beautiful.
What about that song resonates most with you?
See, this is when I saw the interview or something that Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote. It's the one of the inspiration for um, Room Where It Happens was someone in a tree, because there is always someone telling you. There's always a bystander looking and observing and uh and they have an opinion of what's happening, which is so interesting because that's why there are so many versions in history, right? So this bystander or someone just happened to be in the tree. That's what they saw, and they formulate, oh, they're doing this. Maybe it's this, or a warrior underneath the tea house, the treaty house. It's all these. Uh, Someone is watching you, and someone is judging. Someone is formulating an idea of what's happening, and there is always a what is the word? There is always someone who is a witness to your history. And also, even if they don't have a firsthand account, maybe something, there it's gonna be out there. It's gonna be told. And that's why I love the power of storytelling, you know. Yeah.
Well, the way you just described it, it seems like Lin-Manuel was inspired by this musical for more than just in the room where it happens. I mean, Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story is exactly sort of the same point, one of the main points that is part of Pacific Overtures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, one of your co-stars in this is somebody who was in the original production of Pacific Overtures and somebody with whom you appeared in La Cage aux Folles. And now we're talking, of course, about Getty Watanabe. What makes your
Right.
what makes your onstage work with him unique and satisfying for you as an actor?
Because it's like going back to why I started here, why I'm doing this. It's just fun. It's just so much fun. It's the joy of it. It's the joy of finding things, creating things, and being happy in everything that you go through in the journey of the story. Even when you're crying, it's you. I'm sure you felt this when you started crying. There was like a discovery in that feeling. It's deep. Getty, I love him so much. And that is a big reason why I said yes to this, because Tim said Getty might be in this. I said, all right, if he's in it, I'm there. It's just a generous soul. It's beautiful, just a beautiful human being.
And truly one of the nicest people on the planet.
Yes.
Truly a good guy. Now, if we look back on the history of East-West Players, East-West Players, Stephen Sondheim, and Pacific Overtures are inextricably linked throughout its history because East-West Players was founded by Mako, who originated the role you're playing in the original production of Pacific Overtures. And I know that Sondheim invested in East-West Players, and multiple productions of Sondheim's have been done, many of them with Tim directing. But what do you think it means to the company, and what does it mean to you to be bringing a new production of this musical that is so intricately tied to the history of East-West Players?
That even though Sondheim is not here, he still has a very loud voice. It's like, or that he is still making things happen from where he is. He wants this because I read that he was not really satisfied with that everything that it's an unfinished symphony, and I think maybe he wants us to discover it and make it better. And this is what I found out about him. He is not precious with his work. He and even from Getty, the stories he was telling us, he is open to things. He is open to if you want to cut that scene, sure, cut that scene. If you want to, you want more of that, sure, I'll write some more of that. He thinks that it's he will never he will never be satisfied with his work because nothing is perfect. Art is never perfect, and he embodied that.
Now, he isn't always open to suggestions about changing things. Yeah, I'm sure Getty told you the story during the original production of Pacific Overtures, how he went up to Sondheim and said that maybe the song was too long.
Of course, he said that. Oh, Getty. Oh my God, his stories. I love his stories. Oh, I'm sure Sondheim loved that. It's too long.
It is a bit like Mozart being told that there were too many notes in Amadeus.
Right. Yes.
Now, you said one of the reasons that you do this is because you love it. And you've said repeatedly in interviews that if you could do theater 24 hours a day and be on stage 24-hour days, you would be really happy. So what is your priority in picking the roles that would make you happiest on stage? Or maybe the flip side of that, scare you the most, which makes them the most appealing to you?
Combination of those things. If it scares me, yeah. If it's something that I think I can do something with, most definitely. If it's something that I think, oh my God, I can't relate to this, uh, but they're still insisting on, like Hades Town. I asked them why me. I mean, I am so far from blanking.
Hermes?
Yeah, from God, you know who I'm talking about. I'm sorry,
Oh,
sir.
you're talking about the actor.
The original Hermes. I said I can't do that. Even the notes are so high because he was wailing it. He's got a really amazing voice, and Rachel Chapkin said, "Don't worry. The reason why we thought of you is because of what you can bring to the role." So it is that, and now I'm if the author or the director is open to my version of it, I was like, yes, because I basically what I'm saying is if I'm gonna have fun with it, that's it. Yes. Even if it scares me, yes, I'm there. I'm because life is too short and I am happiest when I'm on stage. And I want to feed, and it feeds my soul. It feeds my every being on stage. I'm a different person when I'm on stage.
Now, I didn't see you in Hadestown, but did you overlap with Lillias White?
I took over from her. She's amazing.
Yeah, you took over from her, right? Right. Um, did you see her in the part?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Talk about a human hurricane.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to think that she is that age, like, yes, something to look forward to.
Yes, yes, we won't say what that age is.
No.
Um, well, let me ask you one last thing, and this is based on what has happened in this country in the last few days. In the last song in Pacific Overtures, the reciter says there was a time when foreigners were not welcome here, but that was long ago. In light of the elections this week in America, where anti immigrant sentiment was a huge part in motivating people to vote for one candidate over another, what power does Next have in the show that may be different than it would have had the election gone differently? And what faith do you have that what's next for all of us will ultimately, in time, be better?
Yeah, next, when I understood finally what next is, to me, it's very hopeful. It came from in the show, it came from the people who historically went, no, don't. We're fine here. Don't bring that. But because of the forceful, kind of violent interaction from the West and the because progress you can't really stop. Progress you can't stop. Betterment you can't stop. Anything that is in the in the future cannot be stopped. You can harness it, you can manipulate it, you can, make it better, but it's gonna come. And that is why I think even though a lot of people are heartbroken, it will get better because just like in Pacific Overtures, they made it Japan. It was given to them. They were violently, but they brushed themselves up and started all over again, and they made it better. We can make this better. We can learn something from this. We can overcome this. And because we are resourceful and we know ourselves, we know what we can do. And if only we think as a community, as a country, as us together, as one, we can accomplish anything and we can be better than before.
And isn't that ultimately the best thing that the arts does for us is inspire us to have those beliefs?
Absolutely.
Well, thank
Well,
you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Jon Jon. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to be at opening night, but I will be there next week. So I'm looking forward to seeing Pacific Overtures.
yeah, I hope you like it. I think you will.